Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Tyler. I'll go ahead and get us started.
Yeah, great.
All right, thank you. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today on the future of hacking and cybercrime tactics. We appreciate you taking your time to learn more about this interesting and very relevant topic today. So you all know, this webinar is being recorded for those who were interested but unable to attend at this time. I'm Stephen Sweeney. I'm the CEO of Uprite Services. This is our second webinar of our 2024 webinar series, which is part of our commitment to sharing valuable information and best practices to the industry and to our clients to help their businesses stay productive, secure, and proactive as it relates to information technology. We're very excited to introduce you to Tyler Wrightson, the founder of Leet Cybersecurity, which is also our newest Uprite partner, and we'll be sharing more about Uprite's partnership with Leet later in this presentation. I think you will all very much enjoy Tyler's insights on the future of cybercrime tactics and hacking. Uprite is a full-service managed IT service provider focusing on serving and protecting clients here in Texas, and understanding the techniques and innovations being used by cybercriminals helps us keep our clients protected from risks and threats. And what Tyler will share with you today will help inform your decisions about how to best protect your business. So now I'll turn it over to Tyler. Tyler?
Thanks so much, Stephen. And in case anyone was wondering why I chose to sit on camera awkwardly for 5 minutes, it's because Teams and I have a very storied past, and it refuses to work for me on so many occasions. So rather than chancing it, trying to come on camera, I figured I would just turn it on early. So anyway, let me get things kicked off here. So first, thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Uprite. I'm very happy to be here and continue to kind of spread the gospel about cybersecurity and hacking and threats. So real quick introduction about Leet, who we are and what we do. So I'm the founder of Leet Cybersecurity. We are based out of upstate New York, although we do work all across the world and all across the country. And at the end of the day, we really only do one thing. We hack into organizations. We find the weaknesses that hackers, criminals, or terrorists would exploit, and then we give guidance on how to fix those problems, right? We help create mature security programs to protect against hackers, and that's it. So again, we don't sell hardware, we don't sell software. Really, all we do day in and day out is hack and break security. And so because of that, because that's our sole focus, we have a very unique perspective about adversaries and their methods and all of that. And so that's why we're really happy to kind of spread the gospel any chance we get. My personal background, I've been in cybersecurity for 23 years or so, a little bit longer as a hobbyist. I've written 2 books. One is on wireless network security. The other is on hacking and offensive security, essentially how to hack into any organization. And I always like to say that more important, I think, than any of my professional experience is just that I have been obsessed with hacking and cybersecurity for a very long time. It is beyond a hobby for me. So normally when I give talks or presentations, I love interactive feedback from the crowd. So it's a little bit harder during the webinar, but we do have a Q&A time at the end. And I would say if you have any questions or things you want to elaborate on, just stick them in the chat. Holly, you can feel free to interrupt me if you think it's relevant to answer it right in the moment. Otherwise, I'll make sure we try to get to these all at the end, and if for whatever reason we run out of time completely, then I'll be sure to follow up with people afterwards, and again make sure your questions get answered. So again, I always like to tell people, look, the fact that we're here together, take advantage of that and utilize it to make sure if you have any questions that they get answered. So real quick about the audience, who this content is for. The good thing about this is that we're going to stay relatively high level, right? We're not going to get into all the bits and bytes about specific exploit methods or things like that. I want this to be practical and to be useful regardless of your role at your organization. So whether you're technical or not, you should be able to get a lot out of this. All right, so let's talk about the specific agenda, why you're here, and what I hope to convey. And it's ultimately two high-level things. The first is I want to talk to you all about emerging extortion tactics. So again, what cyber criminals and hackers are really doing to up their extortion games and make things even more difficult for businesses. And then secondly, to talk to you about some specific tactics they're using to hack into organizations, specifically the next generation of social engineering attacks. So again, you might be familiar with like phishing attacks and scam phone calls and things like that. So we're going to talk about how that's evolving and how hackers are adapting. So also it's important to understand that we could easily talk about these topics for a week, maybe a month straight. So to condense it all down into an hour is very difficult. So there are definitely some things that we're leaving out. So maybe stay tuned in the future. Hopefully we can continue the conversation and kind of add some more content to this. And you'll also notice that a lot of this stuff, when I say emerging, I mean emerging now. This is stuff that is hot off the presses. Hackers and cyber criminals are doing these things like starting now. And so to see how these are going to continue to evolve is a little bit crazy. I also have to apologize that I am breaking my cardinal rule I try to avoid all bullet points like the plague, but just by the nature of some of this stuff, I had to just kind of dump some things onto these slides. So I hope you'll bear with me and come back for future ones, but hopefully won't be too bad. So let's jump right in and talk about threat tactics. So the most important thing here is to understand that hackers nowadays are really looking to inflict pain on the individuals that they compromise. It's no longer just about the business. It is, how do I make things painful for this human on the other end of my scam, right? They're not looking to make it easy. They're looking to make it hurt as much as possible because it's ultimately just extortion in its most simple form. And thus, the more painful it is for you, the more likely you are to pay their demands, whatever their demands are. So really all I want to do is highlight some of these crazy examples that have happened in the recent past to kind of highlight this this approach. So here, the first one, this is from November of last year, so only 5 months ago or so. A plastic surgery group in Las Vegas was compromised by hackers, and they started posting pictures and information about people that had visited this plastic surgery group online to make it really, really painful for everyone involved. So again, basically this plastic surgery group had like before and after photos of people, often nude. And so again, the hacker said, hey, this is the data we have. How do we make this really painful for these people? And they started doing that and using that to kind of leverage and say, like, look, you should really pay these demands. We're just going to continue posting additional information. Hackers took a similar approach with a school district in Nevada. So basically what they did was, after compromising the school, they started posting information about the students and messaging the parents on social media saying, hey, we hacked into this school. You should really talk to them and convince them to pay us our ransom demands, or we're going to continue to publish the stuff and use it. So again, really, really nasty stuff. And again, that was November of last year. Same exact thing happened with another school district, also in Clark County, also in Nevada. Where again, they kind of took the same approach, just made it really painful for everybody. So again, we see this kind of tactic over and over again. An interesting one that's very, very recent. So within the past couple weeks, I'm sure you've all seen it in the headlines, massive healthcare organization, where I just really want to highlight just the sheer size of this. A single incident, and the hackers were able to convince them to pay $22 million via Bitcoin to give them access back to their systems. That is just absolutely insane. So the thing I'm trying to highlight here is the return on investment for hackers is nuts. Making $22 million off a single incident that ultimately, may have taken them, a week's worth of effort or so is just absolute insanity. And a lot of people, seeing those headlines with the large organization, all that, they fall into the trap of thinking that they're not targeted. So I just wanted to, kind of convey that, look, there's a lot of statistics to show that small businesses are regularly targeted and impacted. And again, part of the thinking is, sure, maybe their budgets are smaller, but their defenses are weaker. So the hackers probably need to invest less time. It's less difficult. And so even though, maybe they need to hack 20 organizations or 50 organizations to get a similar payout to that big one, it's going to be a lot easier. And frankly, impacting small businesses from that perspective is also easier, right? So a lot of small businesses, they have one or two, a small handful of revenue generating activities or important data. So if the hackers can impact that, then that business is far more likely to pay them. And so again, we see that over and over again. So I have two other quick examples. This one, if you look at the date here, published March 20th. Yes, that is yesterday. So I decided to throw a couple things in last minute just because they're interesting. So again, something interesting to highlight here is right from the article. It says this 44-year-old Robert, who went by Studmaster, he actually just simply bought access into several of these places, which he purchased, essentially compromised credentials from the darknet. So again, there's this whole marketplace that exists where you don't even need to be technical at all, right? You can just go purchase from somebody else that did that initial work of compromising an organization, obtaining credentials, and then you can kind of, take it into your own hands and see what you can get. And I also thought that his choice of name was ironic. I don't think I've ever met a single person in cybersecurity that I would think could go by Studmaster, but I digress. So the last one is just another example, and this was 2 days ago. So March 19th, I highly encourage everyone to Google this one. You can just put, plastic surgery ransomware, and the news article should come up. But this is interesting for so many reasons. So first, the hackers their starting demand was for $1 million for the organization to unlock their data in their systems, and they dropped it down to 500,000, which supposedly this organization paid $500,000 to get access back. And then the hackers did what is extremely common now, which is called double extortion, where they said, okay, we've unlocked your data, you can return to business. However, we also have access to your data now, and if you don't pay us an additional ransom on top of that $500,000 you just paid, we're going to publish this data, or sell it to the highest bidder. And supposedly what happened is the plastic surgery group just went dark and stopped responding, and so they started already kind of releasing that data. And so again, this is really sensitive data for the individuals involved. This is, nude photos as well as, private things that they most likely don't want the whole world to know that they had done. So again, I encourage you to read this and understand what a real incident really looks like from a ransomware perspective. So to summarize all of this, the key point that I want you to take away from this, again, is that hackers are looking to twist the knife, right? If they get anything of value that they can try to extort you with, they're going to do that, and they're going to try to make it as painful as possible for any of the human beings involved. And we're just going to see that more and more and more with them contacting the victims, contacting the people running the organization through any means necessary. So again, consider what they typically have during an incident. They have cell phones, they have email addresses, they have home addresses in a lot of cases. They're literally reaching out every means possible, calling people at all hours, texting them nonstop, hey, you should really pay this ransom. They're just making it really, really painful. It's really a shame, but that's the reality. Next, I want to talk about how social engineering is evolving in a really, really kind of vile and difficult way. And it really all boils down to this concept of synthetic media, which ultimately manifests itself in four typical ways. That is fake images, deep fake videos, the ability to clone someone's voice, and the ability to generate text, which sounds like a specific person, or it sounds like someone with knowledge of a specific language or industry. And again, this is starting to make things extremely difficult. So real quick, how difficult is it to actually execute some of these attacks? So if you're following along with the industry, you might not be surprised that it is ridiculously easy, to the point where, again, just like purchasing credentials on the darknet, it is trivial, and you need virtually zero technical skills, the kind of skills that you can teach your grandparents in an hour. So I wanted to highlight one of the examples here, which is using 11 Labs. So this is something that we played with and we tested ourselves, which gives you the ability to clone anyone's voice, typically with as little as 60 seconds of audio from that person speaking. So pause real quick and think about how easy it is to get 60 seconds of someone's voice. And then, what's the cost? The low price of free. So a lot of these services are free to try. You can see here, this allows you to create up to 3 custom voices. And then again, you can scale it from there. And some of the paid features are as little as $5 a month. So these are not hoops that a cyber criminal needs to, jump. These are very, very, attainable by anybody. $5 a month, $22 a month, and you can clone anyone's voice. It's just kind of absurd. And so real quick, this is their, 5-step process, but when you really break it down, it's kind of like a 2-step process. They say get permission from the voice talent, so that's right out the window for a cyber criminal. It says collect their voice data. So again, they say it can be pre-recorded. So again, think about all the content online. Does this person post on social media? Do they post on YouTube? Do they have videos? Can you call them up and get them to chat for 60 seconds? Record that and then upload it here. And then there you go. It does its magic, and you've cloned a voice, and you can make it say whatever you want. Okay, it's really that simple. So real quick to kind of talk about implications of this. There's a really good Department of Homeland Security publication here. So again, if you kind of Google this, increasing threats of deepfake identities, it's a really good paper. If you really want to get nerdy about this, a lot of good data in there. But I want to highlight some of the content from that paper and some of the specific things that they warn about. So the first one, the scenario 1, is inciting violence. So they kind of talk about, if someone says something racist or disparaging, in this case, they say, if it was a police commissioner. So again, think about how easy it would probably be to get voice data of a police commissioner and create a deepfake video. Disinformation and misinformation. So here they're saying, what if somebody wanted to kind of refute climate change and again have some high-level officials talking about how it's bogus, and we could sway some pretty important things publicly. And then lastly is probably the most vile scenario, but they talk about how child predators could use this technology to sound like a kid or sound like a relative, and I will leave it at that because I'm sure you can understand how absolutely disgusting that could get really quickly. So from our perspective as hackers and cyber criminals, we think about specifically what are some of those instances where we could use a cloned voice to accomplish some pretty crazy things. And so that's what I want to highlight here, just like a couple of those quick scenarios. So first, there's this really interesting feature from Fidelity called My Voice. And so again, Fidelity, all financial services, that type of thing. So sensitive stuff for a lot of people. And it says here, you can utilize this voice verification. It says it confirms your identity when you call us, so you can skip entering PINs and passwords and get things done right away. So that is insane. I'm sure we could get things done right away. So again, this is a terrible idea, something that they should hopefully move away from very quickly. But any instances of this voice verification, they kind of they're all just broken at this point. A lot of people don't understand how easy it is for us to spoof numbers. So ultimately today, right now, we can call you and have the caller ID say whatever we want. So again, imagine that if I call you from your spouse's number or your work number or the IRS or the police department or whoever, and I have a voice that you recognize as that person, why would you not believe anything that person is going to say, right? So spoof card, just another example of these things are extremely easy for cyber criminals. So at the smallest here, you're paying essentially $100 for 600 credits, which basically means you can spoof 600 numbers, and it costs you about 16 cents per call. And that actually even scales down from there. And there's frankly even cheaper ways to do this. But the point is, you can do this with having zero technical skills. So basically what you do is you log into the system or the app, You type in the number you want to spoof, and then it gives you a number that you call, which is then relayed to the number that you ultimately want to call. So again, zero technical skills, very, very easy to use. Or good old-fashioned *67, which is built into every phone. You do that, it blocks your caller ID, and again, you don't even need to worry about that because they pick up the phone, they know who they're talking to, they recognize that voice, and you can say whatever you want to say. So if we clone somebody's voice and we call them up, here's the thing. Anything we want, really. Any scam that has ever worked now just becomes that much easier. And again, if you're speaking to someone you recognize, spouse, boss, CEO, whoever, what could we not request of you, right? That's within, logical, reasonable limits, right? There really isn't much. So I just want to give you some examples because these are common scams and phishing emails and those types of things where it could say, hey, I need you to go pick up some gift cards for me, or I need you to transfer funds, or pay this bill with the company credit card. Or we could call and say, hey, I need some additional information from you about your loan application, or anything like that, right? So anything that's sensitive that you would give to your boss, CEO, manager, spouse, relative, anything like that, we can make those requests and again, have a very logical story as to why we might need those things, and who among us would hesitate to do that given the right person. So again, really just kind of put a fine point on it. Specifically for us, if we want to target organizations, a lot of times with multi-factor authentication, or going straight to the source and saying like, hey, get me logged into the system, or forward me this email, forward me this report. We could ask for virtually anything if we clone your boss's or manager's or CEO's voice and then call you up with that. And so, again, one of the things that we could do would be to collect information about who is away and specifically target those people. So one of our common techniques is we'll send mass emails to an organization, very, very innocuous, doesn't really say anything, basically just says, hey, let's meet up for coffee soon, or just want to confirm we're meeting up for coffee. And all we're looking for are those out of office emails. Right. And so what will happen is it automatically kicks out and say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm away until, March 25th. In my absence, please contact these people. And now we have some really good information about who is out of the office. So we can either clone your manager's voice and call you while you're away, or we can clone your voice and call your manager or the help desk while you're away and say, hey, I'm on vacation. I'm trying to get access to my email. Can you reset my password or reset my multi-factor authentication method, things like that. And again, an easy place to get somebody's voice is sometimes there's some pretty long voicemail messages. So if we call your desk knowing you're away, we're going to get your voicemail. We utilize that to clone your voice, and we don't even need to talk to you. And so again, the thing about that is that as the criminal, we're either calling you while you're away, or we're calling the organization. So really, it's, neither party is safe when we have that information. So let's talk a little more about just a couple specific scenarios that might be particularly scary. So OSINT, or open source intelligence gathering, essentially just looking at all the information that's available publicly. Think things like social media and posts and things like that. So again, maybe you're posting that you're away. And so we know it's a good time to either target you or target the place you work for. And so again, what might we say? Things like, hey, I know you're away on vacation, but we're having trouble logging into the system, or we're experiencing some incident. Hey, what's your password to get into this? Again, if it's your boss, who's not gonna do that given a good story. Here's a scary one. What if we called up one of your relatives with your voice clone and we say, hey, your daughter, we kidnapped her while she's vacationing in Mexico because we know you're in Mexico. And if you want to see her again, you're going to pay us $5,000 or whatever to get her back. And again, if their voice is cloned or we have a video of them, who's not going to react to that very quickly and kind of do whatever the demands are. So more on that in a minute. And so a little bit about how we could, as criminals, quickly scale this. So there is a tool called Warvox, which allows us to call thousands, hundreds of thousands, and given the right resources, millions of phones automatically. And again, this is kind of similar to the technology that telemarketers use. But if we have someone's voice cloned and we just play that audio, depending, regardless of who picks up, think about the implications of that for some large scale scams. So again, maybe we could use this in political campaigns, right? So imagine if you got a phone call and saying, hey, I know you're registered as a Republican, or I know you're registered as a Democrat. Did you hear this craziness from the candidate, right? So maybe you hear a former president, a current president, saying racist things or saying something crazy that you disagree with, something they're going to do. And again, it's completely fake. So again, we would choose messages that are likely to get you to, sway the way we want you to. And again, there's not many limits there to what we can make that person say. Or whether it's, again, a fake state of emergency, or alerting employees of a business with a special note from the CEO, whether that's, hey, take next week off, or whatever. There's a lot of chaos we could cause because, we are that person when we can clone their voice. So again, real quick here, I just want to kind of give you a sense as to where else our minds kind of went when we were brainstorming. Hey, what kind of evil could you accomplish with this technology? Think about harassing people. Cyberbullying is already such a really terrible problem, and now again, it just becomes really kind of horrific with the ability to impersonate anybody. Any cons that worked in the past, right? So think about traditional con men and the cons that would run on people. They become so much easier now. So again, if you heard a testimonial from former President Trump or President Biden saying like, oh, I endorsed Tyler, he's the cybersecurity expert, you should work with him. What couldn't I accomplish, right? So we can make anyone say anything, right? So any con just becomes that much easier. Extorting people, right? Hey, I have now audio or video of you doing whatever I want you to look like you're doing, and so now I'm going to extort you with fake videos or fake audio, right? So what if I say, hey, look, you're in this industry, and I'm going to release this video that makes it look like you're committing a crime, and even if you can prove eventually that was fake, how much damage is that going to do to your reputation and your business, and what are you willing to pay to prevent that? Keep in mind, a lot of these scammers, they're coming from countries where if they get $1,000, like that's legitimate money. And so if they can scam you for $1,000 a year, $10,000 a year with something that's completely fake, you better believe that all that stuff is coming. And again, corporate espionage. If I can impact someone else's business or reputation, again, that just becomes kind of insane. And so last but not least, I wanted to not gloss over the fact that utilizing artificial intelligence to clone text or create text, although it might not sound particularly damning, it actually really elevates the game of a lot of these cyber criminals, because one of those core things you're told to look out for is misspellings and typos and things that aren't really natural things that you would say as an English speaker. That goes right out the window. So that aside, even so, being able to sound like you speak English fluently and there's no issues, there's no errors, grammatical or otherwise, is now you can sound like you're from any industry, right? So I can say, if I'm talking to a CFO in the banking industry and I want them to click this link, create the right lingo to talk to them about X problem. You know what I mean? So again, it's really insane what artificial intelligence has allowed us to do very, very quickly. And again, automating this with a lot of existing technologies is just going to make things kind of insane. So spoiler alert, everything that I just mentioned has already happened. Okay, so all the craziness that I said, imagine if we did X, it has literally all happened. So this was one of the first really crazy examples, which happened last year. This person transferred the equivalent of $600,000 because he believed he was speaking on a voice, like a FaceTime, a video call. He believed he was speaking with his business partner. And so again, normal request. This criminal obviously had a little bit of insight into some of the dealings that they had, called up the person, said, okay, we're ready to transfer the money. Here's the bank information. And why would his partner second guess him when he recognizes his voice? So I gave you that crazy example of, researching who's away and who's vacationing and a fake kidnapping. So again, that wasn't our disgusting idea. That was actually criminals. They did that. They called up this mother, and she heard her daughter's voice say, "Mom, these bad men have me." So again, think about that. If you were a parent and you heard that, what would you not do that the criminals requested right then and there in that moment? Pay something with a credit card, transfer funds, whatever you have. But again, she heard her daughter's voice. It's insane. This also happened. So again, political kind of sabotage here. There was a fake video of the Ukrainian, Zelensky, who essentially admitted defeat. He said, "Okay, Russia beat us. We're giving up. If you're still fighting, throw down your arms." Looked and sounded exactly like him. So, hopefully at some point there will be some data about what was the real impact here. But can you imagine seeing that as a soldier? It is your president. It's you recognize him. It sounds exactly like him. If nothing else, how disheartening would that be to try to continue to fight after that? So again, it's just insane how all of these things have already been entirely weaponized, and we're seeing them kind of across the world. I hope everybody saw this one as well. So again, this was earlier this year, 2024. So in February, basically a month and a half ago, where and this one is particularly interesting. So again, I would highly recommend everyone Google this and kind of read some of the details. But the most interesting thing is that this person that transferred 25 million to a cyber criminal had a Zoom call with multiple people from his organization. All of them were fake. So again, he was having a conversation with the CEO, the CFO, some other people who he recognized. So when they're saying, okay, we're ready to transfer this was for some hush hush project, go ahead and get this transferred, why would he hesitate? This is simple human behavior. And so here's one of the keys to this. One of the most difficult things in cybersecurity is that by the nature of these incidents, no one wants to raise their hand and contact the newspaper and say, hey, we just got extorted for $22 million, or we just got scammed for $25 million. Isn't that interesting? Do you want to hear all about this? So we have very, very limited access to the reality of how bad and how pervasive all of these things are. So these crazy ones that you see, just imagine that it's probably far crazier than things that we don't see. And again, you can get a real sense as to what the real world is like. Okay, so I want to put a really fine point on the implications of this. So all of these emerging technologies and all these interesting things that are changing our world right now. So autonomous vehicles, smart cities, all these smart medical devices that are keeping people alive, your smart homes, right? All of the things that are now controllable via the internet. These things, I don't know why I have smart cities there twice, but I digress. All of these things just become that much more vulnerable and that much more at risk with voice cloning and deepfakes. And the reason is because we as cyber criminals can target administrative channels. So think about all those things, right? Robotics, I don't know how that happened. Robotics and autonomous vehicles, those things are frequently managed by somebody else who's not physically at those from a computer. So all we need to do is be able to get access to those root things that have access to those other things. And again, if we call up these environments that otherwise would be relatively secure and tell people to do things they're not supposed to do because they're speaking to their boss or they're speaking to their CEO, right? They just became that much riskier. So whether that's impacting a city's utilities or driving over people with robotic forklifts, or making your house unlivable because the lights won't stop flashing and the speakers won't stop blaring. And again, so all right, turn off all your lights and now you just don't have lights. Again, unlivable. So all of these things, all this technology just became that much riskier because of these techniques. So real quick, some things about what we can do here. What can this audience do? It's really simple. I've got 4 suggestions for everyone on this call. You can burn your router and internet connection, break your phone, smash your laptop, and go and live in a van down by the river. So obviously I'm kidding, but here's why this is so difficult to solve, right? First of all, no business can operate nowadays without embracing the internet and technology. That should probably go without saying. But these techniques, these tactics, utilizing cloning someone's voice or creating a video that looks like them, these attack what it really means at our root to be humans. Like, it is so deeply ingrained in us to recognize someone's voice that there's no amount of training we can do to make sure that every single time you're talking to someone on the phone that you basically don't trust them and you require getting together in person. And so a research paper that I think really helps drive home that point about how deeply ingrained this is in us. It was a French study, and they found that humans are actually even far better than computers at recognizing individuals. And they can recognize them after that individual says just 4 syllables, right? Think about how crazy that is and how deeply ingrained that needs to be in us to recognize someone after just saying 4 syllables. In their case, it was merci beaucoup. They could recognize that person with 99.9% accuracy by just hearing that. So again, if we call you up as your boss, as your CEO, as your spouse, right, you immediately recognize, oh, that's their voice. And so again, we're in that position of trust. We can ask you for anything at that point. And again, what's super interesting here is that it says that computers only had a 92% accuracy when it came to identifying the voice. And so again, like to drive from that point, all these things just became that much more challenging because all the technology, everything we educate people on when it comes to phishing and social engineering, all of that, already has kind of been proven to be insufficient. And most of the time that's happening just over a text-based email. Right, so somebody has to literally read through this email, understand the request, do what's being asked of them by the cyber criminal, and there's all these red flags and they choose to ignore it. So how much harder does that become to bypass anything when you're talking to somebody that you recognize and trust, likely with your life? So, honestly, what can we actually do? And here's the reality. Right now, the only thing that you can really do when it comes to voice cloning and all of that is educate people. Awareness and understanding, hey, look, it is incredibly easy, trivial to clone someone's voice, to create a video that makes it look like they're doing anything. So you need to be aware of that, whether that's things that you're seeing on the public internet or a phone call you're having where you're just getting a slightly strange request from somebody, and what can you do about it? And so here's the key. Here's what organizations can do today. And what they ultimately should have been doing all along is authenticating individuals with out-of-band methods. If you just do what's requested of you based on a phone call alone, even if you recognize that person, nowadays that doesn't work. So what you need to do is authenticate them. The best way is through a method where you're not currently interacting with them. So if they're calling you, email them or text them, or hang up the phone and call them back in most cases. That's a good way to authenticate. You're really talking to who you think you're talking to. In reality, we will need to create new technical controls to pick up on when video or audio appears to be manipulated or synthetic. But again, that comes with its own unique set of challenges, and really where it starts is with us all being aware that that this is our new reality. So this is Velociraptor. I highly recommend everyone, if you are bored, go look up a bunch of the good Velociraptor memes. But here's my prediction for what this really means for humans, is that we're coming full circle, right? So we moved to the internet age, and Zooms and FaceTime and all of that. This is going to make it so we come back and more things happen in person, because at least for the foreseeable future, I'm sure we're going to get to that point. I really do think we'll get to the point where it's mission impossible and people are wearing masks and they can look like anybody as well. But until that happens, getting together with people, reconnecting on a real human level is going to solve a lot of these problems. I understand that that's not necessarily practical for every business transaction, but there are those critical ones. Hey, I'm about to transfer $25 million, let me, hop on a plane and connect with this person first and make sure that this is legitimate, or authenticate them out of band. So again, I really kind of see a lot of these things coming full circle. And so then to go back to the first thing we talked about, ransomware, the key here, knowing that hackers and cyber criminals are looking to make this extremely painful for humans, is that now an ounce of prevention is worth even more than a pound of cure, in really putting in place controls to prevent that and lower the likelihood that you're going to experience some sort of business impacting event, and focusing on your ability to detect when these things happen and correct them and respond to them. Those things just become that much more critical, because again, the hackers are continuing to see a really, really good return on their investment, the time that they have to spend and any little capital they need to spend to impact an organization and make it really painful for humans. They're just going to continue doing that because they're getting ridiculous payouts. So that's it. That's all I have, other than a special offer. So I think what we're going to do is request that if you want to take us up on this special offer, just put yes or special offer in the chat, and Holly will follow up with you. But basically, the special offer is we want everyone to understand what their organization looks like on the internet from the hacker's perspective. So we're willing to do essentially like a attack surface mapping or reconnaissance on your organization for free, and give you a report that tells you, hey, here's everything that's kind of exposed to the internet, and here how a hacker might be looking at those things, and give you a good sense of that. So again, put yes or special offer in the chat. And otherwise, that's it. That's all I have. We have a good 15 minutes or so. So if anyone has any questions, you can feel free to pop it in the chat, or I think you can even probably hop on audio and feel free to ask away. Great. I see some people signing up for the offer. Anyone have any questions at all?
I'll pose one.
Great.
So what would be your one or two practical pieces of advice that you would give to a small or mid-sized business, not an enterprise scale business, a company with 20 to 200 users, about what they need to be most concerned about today, and maybe something that they could actually do to affect it, to protect themselves or prevent issues from happening?
Yeah, great. So again, pretty high level question. So I'll stay somewhat high level. The first thing, is that being targeted is a misnomer, right? So just because you're small, you fly under the radar. If you are connected to the internet, hackers are just constantly scanning the internet, looking for anyone who's vulnerable to specific things. Or again, as you saw on the example with the person purchasing access to another organization, you could have been compromised through random phishing or visiting a compromised website. You had some credentials compromised, and now that's easy for someone to just purchase access. So you can't just say, I'm flying under the radar, nobody knows about me. That's just not the reality. So you have to take steps to protect your organization. So the best way to do that is to start with, what am I trying to protect? If you don't know what you're trying to protect, then you're going to be kind of spending unnecessarily or frivolously. So what are you trying to protect? I would say, generally speaking, that's going to fall into a couple different categories. Specific data, right? So your customer data, any personally identifiable information, protected health information, covered and classified information, things like that. Know what you're trying to protect. Second is, what business functions are you trying to protect and preserve? Because at the end of the day, I am not advocating that organizations waste money or spend their resources unnecessarily. Because, you know, take the example of, you know, your a random PC in your organization getting compromised or getting ransomware, you know, like your receptionist computer, or, you know, just a salesperson's computer, right? We don't need to spend, you know, $1 million to protect that if the cost to remediate is $1,000. But if you have one or two primary revenue generating functions, put all your controls around that. You know, make sure those things are segmented off from the rest of your people that don't need access to that. Air gap it, firewall it off, whatever you need to do, and put all of your controls around that. Again, it's as simple as knowing specifically what you're trying to protect. I feel like so many organizations, even ones that are relatively mature, have still failed to do that. What are we trying to protect? So answer those questions. And again, you don't need to be technical. Start with, how do we make money? And you know, what systems are involved with that, and then bring that to your technology provider, bring that to your cybersecurity folks, and say, here's what we care about. Let's make sure that's protected. Let's make sure if we experience an incident that's not going to be impacted, and let's start with that. And again, you'll be far better than most organizations.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. And Stephen, do you think that I answered it in depth enough? Do you want me to go a level deeper, or was that good?
No, that was good.
Okay, all right, good. All right, anyone else have any questions at all? All right, great. I think we can end it there then. Thank you for everyone. Thank you for your time, and again, thank you, Uprite. Really appreciate you having me.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thanks, Holly. Thanks, Stephen.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Tyler.